All right, I want to switch gears a little bit because I
All
got
right.
you for limited time here. One of the things that I respect a lot about you is that you're always learning new information. And as a coach, obviously that's super important and no one's going to dispute that. One of the things that I think could maybe be potentially, I don't know, maybe dangerous is the word, is like you learn something new and right away, like you want to go and like experiment on your athlete. Like, I don't think a coach would call it that, but
But
realistically,
that's
that's
what it
probably
is,
what's
right?
going on. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I learned this new protocol. I want to see if it, maybe not if it works, but I want to, I want to do something with it because I learned about it. So I like go and use it on my athlete. And essentially what's going on is in reality is that you're experimenting on them. Um, because I think it's pretty natural. Like when you learn something that like it goes through like this hype cycle of like, okay, you're obsessed with it for a little bit. And then eventually after a period of time, that could vary how long that is, it gets kind of put into your toolbox at the appropriate spot where you know that it's there and that it's going to get used when it, it should be used. And there's times where it shouldn't be used as well. And that process, there's no real way to speed that up. How do you kind of prevent that hype cycle from, from you to basically be experimenting on your clients? How do you prevent that process from happening?
Yeah, that is a great question. And you kind of nailed it. Like it's experimentation, And something that I talk about a lot is, and I think I first heard this from Andy Galpin when I did a podcast with him, is the problem nowadays isn't getting information. The problem nowadays is deciphering the information and making it applicable to you and what you're doing. And like I know, like when I was first coming up and going through and developing as a coach, and right, there's different levels as a coach. And the first level as a coach is really just like your acquisition phase. We're just trying to gather all the information you possibly can and create this tool belt of tactics, of methods, of principles, of ideas. And then you have sort of like that technician phase where you think about how to apply it and you're experimenting or varying with different ways to do things. And then hopefully, if you're able to get to it, it's sort of like that mastery phase. Now, some people never get to the mastery phase and they spend their whole time in technician phase, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And some people are able to get to a quote unquote, mastery phase, right? Of whatever that may be. And when I was coming up, for me to gather information, I had to like spend a lot of time just reading books and diving into journals and studying, or I had to travel and spend a lot of money to go hear someone talk or to go hang out with them. Where nowadays it's getting easier and easier at the click of a button. You pretty much can figure out like anything you want. So I do see that a lot of the coaches kind of experimenting with it. And it brings me back to a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson, which says, "The man who grasps principles can successfully select his own methods." And to me, what that means is the problem with coaches experimenting with things that they learn is that they don't truly understand the principles of what they're trying to do, because they're learning like different methods. So and so teaches this new method on building capacity or increasing the threshold, or this new squat approach, or whatever it might be, right? Like, oh, let's try that. That seems really fucking cool, and we're gonna do that. And all right, well, that you're experimenting, thinking if it can work. And I think what coaches have to first do before they start diving into methods and trying to understand this squat method or this snatch method or this muscle up method or this handstand push-up method is understand the principle of what they're trying to do. Like, what are the principles of building strength? What's the principles of building capacity? What's the principles of building hypertrophy or power, or whatever it might be? The more that they can grasp on the principles, the better they can apply the methods that they're learning for what they're trying to do in a less experimental way. And
Mm-hmm.
the biggest thing I say too is first understand the principles of stress, right? And really what happens to the body from stress, whether it's from adding a stimulus to develop strength or adding a stimulus to improve capacity. And then what happens with too much of a stimulus, too often or not enough of a stimulus, right? And the more that they can understand principles from stress, recovery, and adaptation, the more they can understand the principles of building just pure strength, of building hypertrophy into strength, into power, principles of building capacity, the better they can apply the methods. Because if they only constantly just learn methods, then they're constantly tied to that method and they don't know what the fuck to do if something doesn't go right or doesn't work. But if they take their time first just to develop and understand a principle, then now is when they can really pull from the tool belt. Like, oh, all right, well, I'm trying to get this person stronger. I see we're kind of stagnating here. Okay, well, I can pull from this method and that method to try to figure out how to best adapt to the principle of what I'm trying to create. And if I were to go back in time for myself, like that's what I would tell myself first is spend more time understanding the principles and less time trying to have cool methods from what we're able to read. And I think now we're more gravitated towards methods because that's what's cool, right? Like you pull up Instagram and or the internet and you want to figure out, what's the squat method? Like what's a squat cycle I could put this person on, right? What's a muscle up method I could put this on? Well, instead of that, think about, okay, well, what's a principle for building upper body pulling strength, right? What's a principle for building strength to be able to get them to snatch more, clean jerk more, what have you, right? So that's what I tell people to start. Spend more time on truly understanding the different principles of strength and conditioning before you start thinking about methods. And I think that can help them decipher through all the different stuff out there.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are sort of stuck in the methods mindset where it's like, maybe a simple illustration of this would be all the people who are sort of mediocre athletes who jump around from all the different group programs, the online training programs out there. Like, oh, like I did this one for a little bit. All right, let's go over to this one and see if they have the secret sauce. And then after another couple months, we'll jump over this one. It's like, and as like most of the coaches in the space who are more experienced look at all of them, they're like, yeah, they're all like, I mean, they're all different, but they all sort of are. I mean, they're
same
all training
thing.
CrossFit. Like it's like pretty much the same thing. And it's like, I think that's maybe, that perspective principles, when you can zoom out a little bit and see, okay, where does this fit into the overall picture? And like, where is this going to be appropriate? And then you can start to give it to the people that it's appropriate for the right time. And even if it's a little bit, maybe still a little bit experimentation based because you haven't done it before. And like, that's sort of the nature of it. You can still be responsible in the way that you give it because it's not, I mean, it's something that is still going to be appropriate. It's just a matter of like, how well does it actually work?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I actually see this. So, I mean, I'm sure you and I can go down a rabbit hole here, but like one time I was talking to Matt Bruce. He's the owner of Brute now. And his coach was Hatch. So the Hatch squat cycle, right? Yep. The Hatch squat cycle he told me was designed as almost like not a gimmick, but his lifters were so fucking strong that they're like, what are you doing for squats? What's your squat program? So he just like made up some squat program, like, oh, here it is. Here's what they do, right? But and everyone thinks like that's like the magical. No, he just worked on the principle of getting his athletes really, really fucking strong, and they could all snatch and clean jerk a ton of weight, right? And I see a lot of people jumping around methods too much with when they think about like building capacity, because it's a simple concept of increasing stress, and whether it's from volume or intensity, like that doesn't change. And if you look at traditional running programs, like that's what changes. They're not jumping around on all these different methods and protocols every single week. It's runners are going to run and they're going to slowly increase either their volume or their intensity each week, just by a small amount, like gradually building upon it. It's not doing all these different protocols and methods. It's the same, probably mundane shit and method that they're doing based on the same principle of slowly increasing intensity volume for what their sport or distance requires, and that's the biggest thing to say is like it's not fancy, it's not cool, it's just doing the basic shit, the basic stuff, and doing it really well and just progressively increasing it, right? Progressive overload, no matter what it is, and backing off, allowing time to recover, allowing that adaptation to occur, and then adding a little bit of more, That's what it comes down to. And I think that's what people really got to really dial into.